Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaim Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriya Nashtavrayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatasya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Srila Das Goswami, Volume 4, In Every Town and Village Around the World, 1968 to 1971, Chapter 31st, A Threat Against ISKCON. So returning to Los Angeles, Prabhupada announced he would award several of his disciples the sannyas order. The devotee community excitedly prepared for the festival. The sannyasis, Prabhupada said, would leave their temples to travel and preach. It was an unprecedented change for ISKCON, a sensation, and the devotees loved it. So in 1969, Prabhupada awarded sannyas order. I mean, the society started in 1966. In 3 years only, sannyasis. Sannyasis means traveling and preaching, that's all. And no connection with previous ashram. That's a big dedication, a challenge. And Prabhupada gave that. Although Prabhupada was awarding sannyas to some of his most advanced disciples, he also said the sannyas initiation was to purify these disciples and to rid them of their entanglement in material desires. He set the initiation for the end of July, 2 weeks later. One day in Los Angeles, a visiting devotee speaking with Prabhupada in his room humbly asked why Prabhupada hadn't answered his questions in a recent letter. Prabhupada remembered no such letter. Inquiring from his secretary, Prabhupada discovered that his secretary often showed incoming letters to certain temple leaders who, at their discretion, would sometimes withhold letters they considered petty or too disturbing. Prabhupada was outraged. How dare they come between him and his other disciples? How could they presume to make such decisions on their own? How could a disciple censor his spiritual master's mail? Although Prabhupada reprimanded the devotees involved, the incident only increased the already heavy burden on his mind. Again, the thought of spiritual disease transmitted in letters from India disturbed him. He found no one close to him in Los Angeles with whom he could speak confidentially about this serious minimization of the spiritual master. As his anxiety affected him bodily, he felt ill and stopped eating. Karan, I had heard some things, but in the spirit of going on, it had all been glossed over, and Prabhupada didn't talk much about it either. One time, though, I was in his room right after the sannyasis had left Los Angeles, and he asked me if I understood what had gone on. I said, well, I think so, but I didn't really know very much. At that time, the devotees who were going out on Sankirtan were in the alleyway chanting, and Prabhupada was at his desk. Hearing the kirtan, he turned back, looking in the direction of the devotees below his window, and smiled. Then he turned to me. They are innocent, he said. Do not involve them in this business. So, plenty of things went on even during Prabhupada's time. Basically, it's all a struggle for power and position, which we're going to leave anyway. So why bother? Karanda still didn't understand. He wondered what not involve them in. He didn't know, however, that a shadow was hanging over the head of the sannyasis. Prabhupada requested 3 trusted disciples to come be with him in Los Angeles, Rupanagar. I was in Buffalo and the phone rang. Someone said, Srila Prabhupada is on the telephone. I said, what? You're kidding. It wasn't Srila Prabhupada, but it was his servant, Devananda. Devanand said, Srila Prabhupada wants you to come to Los Angeles. I said, what's wrong? He said, well, he doesn't want. Then he said, Srila Prabhupada wants to talk about it now. So Srila Prabhupada got on the phone, and as soon as I heard him on the line, I paid my obeisances. Then I said, Srila Prabhupada, what's wrong? He said, you didn't know I was ill? I said, no. He said, you should come immediately. Then I said, oh, Prabhupada, let me speak to Devananda. I didn't know what was going on. So I asked Devananda, tell me what's going on. Then he said, Srila Prabhupada said, he will talk with you when you come. He will explain everything. Bhagwan Das. One day after coming back from Sankirtan, I received a call from Rupanuga, who told me he was on his way to Los Angeles, having received a call from Prabhupada that there was some disturbance there. He couldn't tell me more, but he said he would call me when he returned. This set my mind reeling. I sat in the chair, hot and sweaty after coming back from Sankirtan, my mind absorbed in thinking of Prabhupada and what could be going on. I called Los Angeles to talk to Prabhupada's secretary, Devananda, who told me he couldn't really say anything at that point. I was hoping somehow or other I would get more information on the situation. But after waiting some time, I went in to take my shower. I was in the shower when all of a sudden someone banged on the door. Prabhupada is on the telephone. He wants to speak with you. I was sure there was some misunderstanding. How is it possible that the spiritual master could be on the telephone? Anyway, I ran out of the shower, all wet, and picked up the phone and said hello. There was a long pause. Then all of a sudden, I heard Srila Prabhupada's voice on the other end. Bhagwan Das. Yes, I said, Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances. How can I serve you? I was completely stunned. Then Prabhupada's voice came slowly on the phone. There are many things that you will do, but the first thing is that you must come here immediately. I said, of course, Srila Prabhupada, I'll be there right away. And with that, we both hung up. I managed to gather the money together to take the flight to Los Angeles. And when I got on the plane in Detroit, it just so happened that Rupanuga was also on the same plane. We sat together and discussed what could possibly be happening in Los Angeles to cause Srila Prabhupada so much distress. When we arrived at the airport, Karandhar picked us up and told us that some of the older devotees had been plotting against Srila Prabhupada and that day Prabhupada had given several of the men sannyas and sent them away to preach. This was all quite amazing to me. I didn't really know what to make of it. When we came into Prabhupada's room, he looked distressed and was rubbing his head, complaining of the blood pressure that was caused by the conspiracy. Tamal Krishna. I had written Srila Prabhupada a lengthy letter from Paris describing how we wanted to expand our preaching efforts in Europe. And suddenly I received a telegram from His Divine Grace that said, received your letter, 26 July, come Los Angeles immediately. I was quite surprised. And I remember disentangling myself that very day and leaving that night, even though I was in charge of the activities there. When I arrived in Los Angeles, I found Rupanuga, Bhagwan, Kirtananda Swami, and Karandhar. I was in a very enthusiastic, blissful mood from having done so much Sankirtan, and I had no idea of any difficulty. But these devotees were all in a heavy, sober, somber mood, and they tried to explain to me what was going on. But actually, I could not get a very clear understanding. I had arrived in the late afternoon and could not see Srila Prabhupada. Early the next morning, when Prabhupada was informed that I had arrived, he called for me before Mangalarti. I went up to his quarters, and when I came through the door, Prabhupada was sitting in his room with his head downward. He looked up and he appeared to be almost ill. He was gaunt and looked very sorrowful. He said meekly, just as I was bowing down, have they told you? Of course, I hadn't really understood everything, but in reply to this question, I said, yes, they have told me some things. And Prabhupada said, can you help me? So I answered, yes, Srila Prabhupada. He said, can you take me out of here? I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. Of course, I didn't feel that I could help Srila Prabhupada, but I could understand that I had to say yes. How can you say, no, I won't? But how far could I help? It's like lifting the heaviest object in the world. The Guru is so heavy, and yet I had to say yes. So Prabhupada asked me next, where will you take me? And I said, well, we can go to Florida. He said, no, that is not far enough. I said, I could take you to Europe. He said, no, that's also not be good. The problem may be there also. So anyway, we didn't conclude where to go at that time. That's what Srila Prabhupada said. It's like a fire here. I must leave at once. It has become like a fire. Prabhupada confided in Rupanuga, Tamal Krishna, and Bhagwan about the various incidents. His mail withheld, his name misprinted, his riding in the Rath Yatra parade restricted. He mentioned these and other indications that certain persons wanted to move him into the background. out of the reach of his disciples. He didn't want to stay in Los Angeles. He didn't want to stay in the United States. But he didn't want even want to go to Europe. He wanted to leave the arena of his disciples' offenses. But before leaving, he wanted to complete his plans for establishing a governing body to manage ISKCON. To this end, he dictated the following on July 28th. I, the undersigned, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, disciple of Om Vishnupad Paramhans 101 Ashtotarshat Shishimad Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada, came in the United States in 1965 on September 18th for the purpose of starting Christian consciousness movement. For 1 year, I had no shelter. I was traveling in many parts of this country. Then in 1966 July, I incorporated this society under the name and style, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, briefly ISKCON. Gradually, the society increased and one after another branches were opened. Now we have got 34 branches and listed here. As we have increased our volume of activities, now I think a governing body commission, herein referred to as GBC, should be established. I am getting old, 75 years old. Therefore, at any time, I may be out of the scene. Therefore, I think it is necessary to give instruction to my disciples how they shall manage the whole institution. They are already managing individual centers represented by one president, one secretary, and one treasurer. And in my opinion, they're doing nice. But we want still more improvement in the standard of temple management, propaganda for Krishna consciousness, distribution of books and literatures, opening of new centers, and educating devotees to the right standard. Therefore, I have decided to adopt the following principle, and I hope my beloved disciples will kindly accept them. Prabhupada then listed the names of 12 persons who would form the GBC. Shriman Rupanuga Das Adhikari, Shriman Bhagwan Das Adhikari, Shriman Shyam Sundar Das Adhikari, Shriman Satswarup Das Adhikari, Shriman Karandhar Das Adhikari, Shriman Hansaduta Das Adhikari, Shriman Tamal Krishna Das Adhikari, Shriman Sudama Das Adhikari, Shriman Balimardan Das Brahmachari, Shriman Jagadish Das Adhikari, Shriman Haigarib Das Adhikari, Shriman Krishna Das Adhikari. These personalities are now considered as my direct representatives. While I am living, they will act as my zonal secretaries, and after my demise, they will be known as executors. Prabhupada further described the role of the sannyasis. I have already awarded sannyas of the renounced order of life to some of my students, and they have also got very important duties to perform in this connection. The sannyasis will travel to our different centers for preaching purpose, as well as enlightening the members of the Center for Spiritual Advancement. Prabhupada's legal document went on to set forth general directions for the GVC secretaries. They should travel regularly to the temples and their respective zones to ensure that each devotee chanted 16 rounds and followed a regulated schedule, and that the temples were clean. His 12 GBC secretaries would relieve him of management, and they would rectify present and future difficulties within the society. That rectification, Prabhupada's document explained, would be possible only when the devotees in each temple engage fully in regulated devotional service, rising early for Mangalarti at 4:30, attending Srimad Bhagavatam class, and reciting the Sanskrit verses, and chanting in the streets, and distributing back to Godhead magazines and other Krishna conscious literature. This emphasis on strictly following Krishna conscious principles would supersede all material formulas for management. GBC would ensure that in the appointed zones, all the devotees are properly engaged. There would be no Maya. See, Prabhupada has given very simple and very powerful procedure, only if you can follow it. It's our playing with Maya. It's like playing with fire. And then that's when we get burnt. The next day, Prabhupada drafted another significant statement, naming Bhagwan, Rupanuga, and Karandhar trustees of his Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. The Bhaktivedanta Book Trust account will be used to publish my books and literature and to establish temples throughout the world. Specifically, 3 temples are to be established, one each in Mayapur, Vrindavan, and Jagannath Puri. Since returning to America in 1967, Prabhupada had often said he would stay permanently in America as the adopted son of his disciples. Now he revealed new plans. He spoke of going to India to preach and to establish large ISKCON temples for the devotees who base their activities mostly in small rented houses. Prabhupada's constructing cathedral-like buildings in India was inconceivable. In India, Prabhupada said he would teach his disciples how to preach and how to establish temples. Prabhupada picked a team including 2 newly initiated sannyasis to accompany him to India. In the future, he said, more disciples could join him, for India would become an important field for Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada wrote Satswarup and Uddhav in Boston. You're all my children, and I love my American boys and girls who were sent to me by my spiritual master and have accepted them as my disciples. Before coming to your country, I took sannyas in 1959. I was publishing BTG and since 1944. After taking sannyas, I was more engaged in writing my books without any attempt to construct temples or to make disciples, like my other god brothers in India. I was not very much interested in these matters because my Guru Maharaj liked very much publication of books, then constructing big temples and creating some neophyte disciples. As soon as he saw that his neophyte disciples were increasing in number, he immediately decided to leave this world. To accept disciples means to take up the responsibility of absorbing the sinful reaction of life of the disciple. At the present moment in our ISKCON campus, politics and diplomacy has entered. Some of my beloved students, on whom I counted very much, have been involved in this matter, influenced by Maya. As such, there has been some activity which I consider as disrespect. So I have decided to retire and divert attention to book writing and nothing more. But then that really did not happen, his book writing. Wish he had given more time to that. He was still involved with the management and taking care of different issues. On July 31st, Prabhupada wrote Brahmananda and Gargamuni explaining why he was leaving for India. In order to set example to my other sannyasi students, I'm personally going to Japan with a party of 3 other sannyasi students. Although it is beyond my physical condition, still I'm going out so that you may learn the responsibility of sannyas. I'm fervently appealing to you all not to create fracture in the solid body of the society. Please work conjointly without any personal ambition that will help the cause. It's the injunction of the Vedas that the spiritual master should not be treated as ordinary man. Even sometimes the spiritual master behaves like ordinary man. It's a duty of the disciple to accept him as a superhuman man. In the beginning of your letter, your comparison of the soldier and the commander is very appropriate. We are on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, one side Maya, the other side Krishna. So the regulative principles of a battlefield, namely to abide by the order of the commander, must be followed. Otherwise, it's impossible to direct the fighting capacity of the soldiers and thus defeat the opposing elements. Kindly, therefore, take courage. Let things be rightly done so that our mission may be correctly pushed forward to come out victorious. Prabhupada wrote other letters revealing his plans to travel to India. Our life is very short. The Krishna consciousness movement is not meant for fulfilling one's personal ambition, but it's a serious movement for the whole world. I am therefore going to the Eastern Hemisphere, beginning from Japan. We are going 4 in a party and all of us are sannyasis. In this old age, I am going with this party just to set an example to my disciples who have taken recently the sannyas order. In fact, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he revealed that when this happened in Los Angeles, Prabhupada, when he went to take darshan of deities, Rukmini Dwarkadhish there, so he was praying and he was asking them, why you want me to leave this place? why you're taking me out of here? There's so much of work to be done. And then Prabhupada went to India, and then he established the movement in India. And then later he said, well, now I realize why Krishna wanted me to come back to India. Because Krishna wanted him to establish the temples and the movement in India. Because that's where the real explosion happened in India. Just when when Indians saw the American disciples of Prabhupada chanting and dancing in the streets and preaching and following the Vaishnava principle, wearing dhoti kurta, so they were surprised. They were really surprised. How is it possible? And then one thing after another, and so many Indians at that time joined the movement. And then the temples were built, like Vrindavan, Mayapur, Bombay. 3 temples, major temples, were built by Prabhupada at that time. So that is when he realized why Krishna wanted him out of Los Angeles and go to India. In preparation for Prabhupada's trip to India, Prabhupada's secretary, Devanand, now Devanand Swami, asked him questions from the immigration form, mechanically reading the questions and filling in the answers as Prabhupada replied. Have you ever committed any criminal acts? Devanand asked, reading from the form. Prabhupada's eyes widened. You are asking your spiritual master if he did anything criminal? And he turned to Bhagwan. You see, I'm simply surrounded by people I cannot trust. It's a very dangerous situation. Prabhupada sat in his garden the night before his departure. Don't be disturbed, he told the disciples with him. We are not going backward, we are going forward. I'll reveal everything to you, I will rectify. His strong words and criticisms, he said, had been to enlighten his disciples, to warn them and show them the subtleties of Maya. Karanda mentioned that the temple leaders had arranged that only a few devotees go with Prabhupada the next day to the airport. Where did this idea come from? Prabhupada asked. Srimad Bhagavatam instructs that when a saintly person leaves your company, all present should follow the departing vehicle as far as possible until it is out of sight. So the next day, the devotees all accompanied Prabhupada, chanting and dancing behind him through the long corridors of Los Angeles International Airport. After many months with them, he was now leaving. Devotees cried. Prabhupada, dressed in new garments, his head freshly shaven, looked effulgent. He sat in the departure lounge, head held high, as grave and unfathomable as ever. He was embarking on a new adventure for Lord Chaitanya. He was old and might not return, he said, but his disciples should continue the Krishna consciousness movement seriously. If you follow this new schedule, he said, you will keep Maya from attacking. And then he left them. So look at what Srila Prabhupada had to go through. And but still, he still kept on serving Krishna the best way he could. Okay, I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri